Okay. So the next thing is about the he's talking like I first encountered with Pasquet brandy about 2 years ago. Perhaps an earlier version of your XO.
Right.
I had a chance to taste it. It was completely different from the brandies I'd had before. Refreshing, hearty, together with a wonderfully rich expression of grapes. And I ended up having several pours.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to spread that excitement more widely in Japan. Could you tell us a bit more in some detail about what makes Pasquet's brandy distinctive?
That's a very good question. So cognac is split up into 6 different regions, like sub-regions of the cognac appellation. All cognac is brandy, but not all brandy is cognac. The rules of cognac are very strict compared to the rules of brandy. And I think the terroir has a big role in it. So terroir is where your estate is, how your grapes are planted, but also the ancestral knowledge that we have from generations before us, how to run the vineyards, how to run the distillery, how to age the cognac. And I think that all put together, because our terroir is very specific. We're on the border between the Grand Champagne and the Petit Champagne. And so it's changing quite rapidly there. And I think that gives our cognacs a special character that we know how to bring out through the distillation process and through the aging process. We only use new oak. We don't use any additives in our cognac making process. So in cognac, you are allowed to use 3 additives. You're allowed to use caramel to make sure the color is darker than you think, or make sure the color is always the same year in and year out. But I think people have come to know Pasquet for being natural vintners and not using additives. So I think the clientele that we have accepts the fact that the color might not be exactly the same year in and year out. We also don't use sugar. So we don't chill filter our cognacs, which means we don't take them down to negative 18 degrees Celsius. So there are lots of fatty acids that are contained in the distillate. When you make that negative 18 degrees Celsius, those fatty acids are going to come together to form long chains. Then you filter them out so that when they go through shipping, you don't get flocculation in the bottle. You might get flocculation here because shipping is very long to Japan, but you know what? You can just shake the bottle and it goes away. So the idea for us is to not take those fatty acids out, because that's what coats your mouth when you're tasting, and it makes it so that we don't need to add sugar back for the tasting. And the third thing that people can add in cognac is called liquid boisé. Liquid boisé is a very traditional additive. It's probably the most noble of additives because it's made with wood chips from the cooperage process. So when we make a cask, we cut off little chips of wood to make the staves what they are and fit together. Those wood chips still contain tannin and wood flavor and color that they can give the cognac. You're not allowed to put those wood chips in the cognac, but for many, many centuries, we've used the wood chips to clean the pot still. How do we do that? We put water and wood chips in the still, and that the tannins of the wood and the acidity of the wood is actually going to clean off the pot still at the end of the season. Now, in cognac, we are farmers, so we have a waste not, want not attitude toward everything. So when you think about it, we've distilled the water, we still have the wood flavor. So what's left in the still can be used to reduce the cognac in the barrels, and it'll also give them a byproduct of woody flavor. So it is wood extract and water. We no longer use that either because we feel like the cask as a container, a new cask, gives more depth of flavor than this wood extract does. So we've stopped using additives little by little. Jean, when he took over, he stopped the caramel completely. And then after that, he stopped sugar, and maybe 3 years later, he stopped using boisé. So I think that has to do with the freshness of what you're tasting in our cognacs.
That's the character of that taste, and that's what everyone wants.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing the message.
And also, I understand your family-run house remains true to traditional methods. As producers, could you share any challenges you faced and how you differ from other masons? Maybe you mentioned some, but yeah.
Right. So I talked about additives. We're also using organic agriculture. So organics means that we use no chemically synthesized products in the vines. That's less than 1% of cognac vines today. And we also are using, if you can compare it to medicine, human medicine, we're only using topical things, things that don't go into your bloodstream, and we're also using preventative medicine. So I like to think about it as actually kind of Asian medicine. If you keep the person well, then it's much better than taking away the sickness if it gets sick. So the plant is the same way. So our ideal is to keep the plant well by giving it vitamins, minerals, and helping its own immune response instead of letting it get sick and then giving a product to take away the sickness. So we use two very active ingredients in that process. It's copper and sulfur. Those are the natural elements. They come from nature itself. And besides that, we use tea, actually stinging nettle, weeping willow, and horsetail tea to get that immune response better in the plant. So that's something that's very different for us. There's another thing in organics that's quite complicated for us. It's taking care of the competition with the weeds in the vineyards. And we're not allowed to use Roundup or Weed Eater, chemical weed killer. So we have to do that mechanically. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles that we have in our vines because nobody else has to struggle with that. They use chemicals. The chemicals are very efficient in doing what they're promised to do. But we don't have that option with the organic label.